Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to round two of New School versus Old School. I am your host, Armani DePaul, host of CBO-TV, as well as commentator on CBO-TV. And like I mentioned before, this is round two of New School versus Old School, this new show that we are premiering here on CBO-TV, where we take the old school baseball mentality and the new school baseball mentality, and we pit them together, and then our panel of judges decides who is the winner. Now, the first round, which will be up in a future period, we had Mike Razzo go up against Antonio Aponte, where Mike Razzo came away as the winner. Can Antonio get the win this time, or is Mike Razzo going to go back to back? We're going to find out all those questions today. But before we begin, let's introduce the two panelists. We'll start off with Antonio. Antonio, introduce yourself.
What's going on, guys? I'm Antonio Aponte, loser of week one in this podcast debate. But I'm back, and I'm happy to be back, and I hope to beat Razzo today with some new school mentality.
That's Antonio, the new school mentality, and then we'll move on to the old school mentality. The winner of our last debate, Mike Razzo. Mike, introduce yourself.
How you doing? I'm Coach, lifelong baseball guy. W is the only thing that matters. Yes.
All right. So we got 5 new questions here for our two contestants. And for the panels, a little bit different panel here. You still got CEO Mario Sigranello as one of the judges, but we also got Marty, Roger, and Paola as well as some new judges. So we're expanding the judge pool a little bit here. But with all that out the way, we're going to say the rules one more time, and then we're going to get started. So I'm going to give you guys a question. Then we'll alternate between Antonio and Mike, and then we'll just do it kind of like a snake, where it's like either Antonio go first, and then Mike's going to go first for the next question, vice versa. Each contestant gets 60 seconds to give their answer. After 60 seconds, the time is cut off, and then we move on to the next one. All right? Sound good?
Let's go.
Let's do it. All right, so we're going to start off with question number 1, and that is, should there be a salary, and if so, how much? Yes, no players is worth more than their production on field, and off field 100% production base. So we'll start off with Antonio, and then we'll move on to Mike.
So should there be a salary cap, as I'm assuming what the question is, Armani?
Yes.
So absolutely. I think there should be a salary cap in Major League Baseball. I know Mike's going to come on here and say no because it would terribly affect his Yankee players, but there should be a salary cap. I think it's great for the game. It's very successful in other sports. It keeps it competitive. It keeps teams from tanking. I think it would really help the sport of baseball grow because we'll see some smaller market teams be able to compete a little bit better with those bigger markets who are able to bring in so many free agents. So I'm 100% for the salary cap. I think it would be great for the sport in total and make it a more competitive league. And it works really well in some other leagues like the NBA and NFL. So absolutely 100%.
All right, Mike.
So you actually read my response to the question when you asked the question. And the question says, should there be a salary? And if so, how much? So I perceived it as the individual player. So when you look at individual players and you give them big contracts and they don't perform, they're underachieving and they're not worth it. So the question that I say, the answer is, yeah, there should be some kind of salary cap as a team as a whole, so one team doesn't dominate by free agency. But salaries should be designed based on production. So if you want to make the maximum amount of money this year and you have to hit 300 and you have to hit so many home runs and you have to have a good ERA and your percentage and all that stuff should be the level of what pay you should get. Nobody's worth $30 million that has to strike out, more than they get hits. And I'm not going to mention any players unless asked. So yes, salary caps across the board.
He's talking about Giancarlo Stanton, everybody.
All right, so that's question number 1. Now let's move on to question number 2, and that is, who should be on the Marlins Mount Rushmore? So this time around, we're going to start off with Mike. Mike, who is your Mount Rushmore of Marlins players?
Well, it's such a short history, and a lot of the guys that came over initially, I would say Andre Dawson first and foremost, because he kind of put a face on the team. Jeff Conine was a great marketing representative. He had some good baseball seasons. He was a hard-nosed type player. I think he should be there because of the history of what he did. I like Jack McKeon, even though he wasn't a player there. He brought them together as a team and actually took a bunch of misfits and, got a world championship. And just the way he went about it was fantastic. So he deserves to be there. And then jokingly, Miggy Cabrera obviously should be the next guy. But I think Billy the Marlin plays a big part in the Marlins' success to date. But taking Billy the Marlin out of the equation because he wasn't a player, Miguel Cabrera is going to be a Hall of Famer, and he owes it to the Marlins organization and also the fact that he did well as a Marlin.
All right, Antonio, who's your Mount Rushmore?
I only got one, the same as Mike. I'm going Cabrera, Hanley Ramirez, Josh Johnson, and Charles Johnson. So 2 J's there. Johnson, first ever picked by the Marlins, 97 World Series champion, won a couple of Gold Gloves. Cabrera, like Mike said, started his career here in Miami and a Hall of Famer. So I agree with those. I think Josh Johnson was one of, if not the best pitcher in Marlins history. You can argue Fernandez, you can argue Ricky Nolasco or Anibal Sanchez, but that 09 team was stacked, and Johnson was probably the best pitcher on it. And then Hanley Ramirez is, I think, the face of the Marlins. If I had to say, he had some really good years. Rookie of the Year, almost had an MVP year in 09. It might have been an MVP season, but Hanley was great. I think a lot of the newer players have really shaped this team, and that's who I'd pick as my 4.
All right, so that's question number 2. Let's move on to question number 3. Cal Ripken or Derek J. Jeter as your shortstop? We'll start off with Antonio, and I apologize if I mispronounce any of those names.
Yeah, I'm taking Ripken Jr. Sorry, Mike. Ripken's just better than Derek Jeter in both aspects of the game, offensively and defensively. Overall, Cal Ripken Jr.'s lifetime wins above replacement is significantly better than Jeter's. More silver sluggers than Jeter, more home runs, more RBIs, more games played, obviously. And he was just the iron horse. Jeter was not as good defensively as Cal Ripken Jr. I don't care that he has more Gold Gloves. Go look at his defensive wins above replacement. Jeter's lifetime overall was -9. It's embarrassing. Jeter is an overhyped defensive player. Ripken's better than him defensively, and offensively he produced more bigger hits, bigger runs, and they're both world champions, so I don't want to hear about Jeter's more rings. They both won a ring, different situations, different teams. So I'm taking Cal Ripken Jr. all day.
All right, that's Antonio's answer. Mike, what do you have to say about that?
Cal Ripken was great. I love Cal Ripken. He did some fantastic stuff in his career, no doubt a Hall of Famer. Nowhere near the baseball player that Derek Jeter was, not because I'm a Yankee fan, but when you go out there every day, day in and day out, and do what Derek Jeter did in the pressure, in the city, and constantly producing the clutch. See, there's no measurement for clutch. Take all the stats and throw them in the toilet because they don't mean crap. Because on the field, when you get the job done and you get the W, that's all that matters. And when you look at Jeter's career, he did nothing but win. Ripken was on some bad teams and might have been the highlight of those teams for those years.
10 seconds.
Championship. And Jeter is just the bomb.
All right, so we got a little bit of differences there in question number 3. That's going to be really interesting. I loved that little debate right there. Let's move on to question number 4. Should college baseball switch to wood? Start off with Mike.
Coaching baseball all year round and playing wood bat in the summer with 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds that I'm teaching here locally in Palm Beach County. Also coaching at Park Vista High School. We try to, get them to swing wood a little bit during BP just so they get the feel. look, the game is the show is played with wood, so why would we not play with wood to get players ready? Metal bats compensate. Or you make contact with a metal bat, it's going to fly. You make contact, that same amount of contact with a wood bat, it doesn't go as far. And most of the time, the negative friction created with wood, results in the true trajectory of the ball, or whether it's fair or foul. Metal, sometimes you can swing poorly and still get a base hit, find a seeing eye, or a line drive, or what have you. I think it's time that college players start playing with wood. They'll be more ready for the next level if they make it there. It'll also neutralize some of the kids that
10
don't.
seconds.
It'll also neutralize some of the players who do get drafted that don't belong in the draft on a major league squad, whether it's rookie ball or not.
Antonio, what say you?
Well, I'm going to disagree with Mike. And I think we can all agree the reason why we're doing this podcast, the reason why we come on here and do stuff like this is because we want to grow the game of baseball. And I think if you make kids use wood bats, make college players use wood bats, any amateur level use wood bats, you're not going to grow the sport. And I'll tell you why. Wood bat's going to break, obviously, a lot more than an aluminum bat. And for a kid to not play baseball because he can't afford a wood bat or he can't afford to continuously replace it is ridiculous. At the amateur level, let the kids use aluminum, let them hit. If they get a cheap base hit, it's not going to affect their draft stock. It's for the fun of the game. Let them play with aluminum bats so they can actually afford to play and continue to play and to play the sport that we all love. We try to grow the sport. We're not trying to break it. We're not trying to have kids turn away from the sport because they can't afford to constantly replace their bats. Because a kid gets a bloop single or not,
10 seconds.
Any more ready. If a kid gets a bloop single, it's not going to make them any more ready for the big leagues or not. Scouts are going to still do their thing. They're going to know who could still hit. It's been done for years. It's not going to change anything. Continue to grow. Let kids use aluminum bats.
Talking about college, though, we're not talking about amateur. We're talking about college kids. The question was college kids.
Well, even at the college
wood.
level,
they should be using wood.
Even harder at the college level. It's even harder. Those kids have even less money.
My guy swang wood. He played last night. He batted in his first career, game. He batted in Shohei Ohtani. Hit. Went from Florida Atlantic College to Double-A, and he played 10 games in Double-A, and he batted in front of Shohei and got a hit.
I saw that.
It's just, I was on the phone with him all night. He was ecstatic.
All right, let's move on to the final question. That's question number 5, and that question is World Series Game 7. Who gets the ball? Start off with Antonio.
All right, I'm picking Sandy Koufax, guys. I know I'm new school, but I'm going old school with this pick. Probably the most dominant pitcher of all time. If he didn't get hurt, he would be no regard, no question, the number 1 pitcher of all time. But Koufax, perfect game, one of the best of his generation. Had that stretch of an ERA under 3 for several years. Won World Series in Brooklyn. The guy is just the best pitcher of all time. His curveball was scarier than Kershaw. Incredible lefty. Game 7, I want the best lefty of all time, best lefty on the planet. Taking Koufax. Easy answer.
All right, we'll finish it off with Mike.
I don't disagree about Koufax. However, there's only one pitcher that you really want. One guy that could get up in the big stage and the bright lights and the pressure and had enough fortitude to just, you ain't hitting it off of me. And the Ryan Express is unchallenged and unmatched to this day. So Nolan Ryan is my choice. Oh, and he just tormented the Yankees throughout his career. So having watched him and watched other pitchers in the modern day, nobody has done close to what he has done. And if it's a Game 7, I wish I had Nolan Ryan all the time.
All right,
if you would have Game 6 our money, I would have picked Josh Beckett, but that's a different story.
All right, so we're going to see who is now the winner for game number 7. We're getting the results from our judges. But while we wait in the meantime, how did you guys enjoy those questions compared to our first debate?
I like those. Those were good ones. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, excellent questions. And I don't, there's really no wrong answers because it's a matter of opinion and it's a matter of baseball knowledge. And obviously, between the two of us, we have, for the most part, that knowledge. It's just some of the stuff that baseball has done, it's changing and it's just not the same game.
I like them. I think the questions polarize us a little bit better.
Well, yeah, it brings out your point of view, my point of view, and from experience. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can't go wrong with Sandy Koufax or Nolan Ryan.
True.
I mean, for that matter, you can't go wrong with Josh Beckett or Andy Pettitte.
That's true.
Garrett Cole or Justin Verlander. I mean, you could throw Christy Mathewson and Babe Ruth for that matter. I mean, so when you look throughout the history, there's just too many good guys. But it does polarize what you and I believe in our baseball knowledge.
Right.
And
I really wish they would have asked the question 12, which was Rapsado, which I think is a piece of garbage. I think technology needs to be out of the game. I can't stand the pitch thing. You can't. I mean, Altuve cheated. The Astros cheated. Joey Cora cheated. Those guys shouldn't be in the game anymore. They cheated. But traditionally speaking, the game was designed with signs. And you've taken away the tradition of the game by going electronic. I don't believe Rapsado is a great thing for hitters. I don't believe it's a great thing for pitchers. Yeah, you want to see bat speed in slow-mo? Fine. You want to see velocity on a pitch? Fine. Do it on the field, get the win, and then you look at the box score. That's the way the game was designed. Electronics are just a distraction. Look at the Yankees are going through right now. They went from analytics now to raw basic hitting from Sean Casey. They can't do either one because they're such scrambled eggs.
And I could definitely tell with just like the way you guys were, giving your opinions, everything like that. It definitely felt, more different or more of a debate. So it was definitely interesting, but it looks like we actually have the numbers in. So it looks like we might have a tie here at 2-2 between our four judges, which means that to break the tie, I'm going to be the tiebreaker. Now, I thought both of you guys gave fantastic and analytics of the questions that I asked. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, if I could, I would honestly keep it as a tie, and then we'd go from there because I thought both of you guys did great. However, I have to pick one, and both of these are really both of you guys gave great opinions, so it's really tough to decide. So, by the slimmest of margins, I'm going to give round 2 to Antonio.
Oh, boom.
And look,
1-1, Mike.
Yeah. And this is going to make the next debate even more interesting because now we got a tiebreaker on our hands. So when we come back on, both of you guys better give your best performances because there's a tiebreaker on the line.
Sounds good, boys.
So Mike Razzo takes debate number 1 for the premiere of New School versus Old School, and then Antonio Aponte takes takes debate number 2 of New School versus Old School. We are tied at 1-1 apiece. When we head on to debate number 3, who's going to come out on top? Guys, thank you guys so much for coming on. Paola, Mario, Roger, thank you guys so much for coming on as judges. Thank you for having me on as the host. And we'll sign off here. Mike, thank you for coming on once again. Antonio, thank you for coming on once again as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. And make sure to tune in to CBO-TV to watch not only this debate, but also the first debate as well, along with all the other content we have here on CBO-TV, such as Charles Johnson Summer League. There's a couple podcasts there as well as replays of previous baseball games, such as the World Cups and the Palm Beaches. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.